Listening to the videos on this channel, you might have observed that becoming a spiritual person is linked to intellect, gratitude, and grace. Here in this video, I'm going to discuss the aspect of using your intellect and to develop the power of proper decision making, a much needed trait by so many of us. Proper decision making can only happen with 3 simple steps. Number 1, when you start off with a realization that the self, which is your very soul or energy, is different than this body. Number 2, you focus only on your actions. And number 3, you set aside time for contemplation or reflection on how you acted or behaved. A person following these 3 steps develops a muscle of wisdom that is called firm wisdom. By the way, to understand more about how the soul is different than the body, check out the video on Is Death Justified? The Gita calls an individual with mastery in the art of discrimination between the body and the self and on the path of right action is sthita prajna. In the state of sthita prajna, consciousness is merged in transcendence, meaning direct knowledge is perceptible to the senses and that is produced. Direct knowledge perceptible to the senses is produced. This is also called intuition, and with this you connect with others effortlessly. The state of sthita prajna makes you rock solid in your thought process and intellectual capability. Mindfulness or focus becomes your second nature. Even focus on the divine is effortless and unperturbed by the sounds or distractions surrounding you. The warrior Arjuna in the Gita questions Krishna on the characteristics of a person of firm wisdom. Arjuna asks, how does a person of a firm wisdom speak? How does a person of firm wisdom conduct their life? How do they behave? Krishna describes 4 stages an individual goes through to become a person of firm wisdom. In the first stage, the individual develops the ability to think and act prior to getting the senses engaged with sense objects or desires. Like a tortoise that withdraws its legs, the individual knows to catch up and direct the responses appropriately. In the first stage, the person develops the ability to filter out responses and actions. Filter out. Anger or hate is no longer an automatic response. There is a momentary recognition of the behavior before any action is triggered. Initially, the person may not always succeed in withdrawing and being responsive all the time. However, awareness exists to help the individual engage and catch up. The scriptures use the term yatama first stage. In the second stage, the individual develops a restraint from excessive like or dislike. The person is even-tempered, understands the constitutional position of the body, the soul, and the super soul. The scriptures use the term vyatireka samadhi for this stage. In the third stage, the individual develops a proactive mindset. The mind is not affected by sorrow or happiness, even if there are indications that the sorrow or happiness are forthcoming. The scriptures use the term ekendriya samadhi stage. The last stage or the fourth stage is the final stage before a person matures to become a sthita prajna. The individual has a mind engaged in action, inquiry into the real purpose of life, and acts with unwavered concentration. Since there is unwavered concentration, mind is engaged in thoughtful action, and there's always a pivot to the real purpose of life. Therefore, decision making becomes easy. And during the time set aside for contemplation, inquiry happens. There's a communion through meditation, and concentration manifests into union with the soul or divinity. The scriptures use the term Vasikara Sama for this fourth stage. Such individuals who have reached the fourth stage are also called Aparoksha Jnani, a person with the ability to perceive direct knowledge and not be judgmental. Let me explain to you the difference between the third stage and the fourth stage. In the third stage, there are still remnants of material desires, and when persisted, there is a possibility for those remnants to expand and cause the maturity to come down to the first or the second levels. When uncontrolled, the individual may slip back to become a victim of mundane life. A pot filled with oil will still have a layer of oil in it, even if the oil is thrown away. That is what can happen in the third stage when you don't continue to advance. The fourth stage is endowed with purity, however. Other than inquiry and being firmly on a spiritual path, even in your professional and personal life, there are no other distractions. Using the pot example, when the same pot of oil is washed thoroughly with a detergent, the traces of oil get washed away. The fourth stage is like washing thoroughly with a detergent. You go through a purification process. There is no going back, and transformation is permanent. The fourth stage is also the moment when an individual may realize complete oneness. The person sees no distinction between a man, women, and other entities. There is unity in diversity. The only thing that remains is a recognition of the energy that pervades us all. Is it easy to attain and retain this state of firm wisdom? Probably not, unless you follow a life of discipline. A person who is in the first stage can get easily swayed away compared to a person in the third or fourth stage. It's like a recovering drug addict swaying back to addiction unless the recovery is discipline and control. Get into a mode of discipline. Follow the 3 simple steps I have outlined to develop the power of decision making. You can do it. All it requires is you understand that your core energy is different than the body, that you focus your mind on actions, and then you keep and set aside some time to contemplate and reflect on how you acted and how you behaved. Once you do that, then you will realize you will become a person of firm wisdom, and decision making becomes your default nature. And once that happens, then you will realize the same way Krishna responded to Arjuna on how a person of firm wisdom behaves, you will realize that you also have those 4 stages that Krishna described. Hope this helps. I'll talk to you soon. Till then, stay blessed.